Today's lesson is on fractions, decimals, and percents. In this section, we will learn how to convert numbers into fractions, decimals, and percent, and vice versa. In the first example, we are converting a fraction to a decimal. This means we will need to divide the numerator by the denominator. So in example 1, we have 1/4. This means we need to divide the numerator 1 by the denominator 4. You'll end up with 0.25. Now you may use a calculator, or if you're doing these calculations by hand, you're going to use some long division. So divide 1 by 4, you're going to need to add a decimal and a 0. When you do the division here, you're going to start with 8. You have a remainder of 2, and you'll bring down the 0, and 4 goes into 20 5 times. So you can see how we end up with that 0.25. Now the 0 in front of the decimal is meaningless, but it is kind of nice to have it there so that the reader can clearly see where the decimal is at. In the next one, you would divide 6 by 10. You would get the result here of 6/10. In the third example, I have a mixed number, 1 3/4. So you are going to want to keep the whole number 1, which is the number in front of the decimal, or the whole number right here. And then we're going to divide 3 by 4. 4 will go into 30 7 times. That's 28 with a remainder of 2, adding a 0, bringing down. We end up with 75 hundredths. So when we write our answer, we need to bring back that whole number 1 that we had in the mixed number, and then we will add our decimal portion. So our answer is 1.75. Moving on, we're going to turn a decimal into a fraction. This time we will place the decimal number over its place value, then simplify when it's necessary. So you can see we start off with 25 hundredths. We capture the entire number, all of the numbers after the decimal, and we place them in the numerator. Because that 5, the last number after the decimal, is in the 100ths place value, 100 becomes our denominator. From there, you're going to reduce the fraction to 1/4. So whenever you can simplify or reduce the fraction, you should. In the second example, we have 6/10. Since the 6 is in the tenths place, the 10 becomes our denominator. The entire decimal portion is up here in the numerator. And of course, you can reduce 6/10 to 3/5. In our example where we have a whole number as part of our decimal, we will keep that whole number and then just deal with the fraction part. So the values after the decimal become the numerator. Since the 5 is in the 100ths place value, it becomes our denominator. And of course, anytime you can reduce the fraction part, you should. So we end up with 1 3/4. Now let's take a decimal and turn it into a percent. This process is relatively easy. We always move a decimal point to place values when we're doing this because decimals or percents are all based on 100. You will move that decimal to the right and add the percent symbol. So here, when we start with 0.25, we are going to move that decimal 2 places to the right when we want to convert it to a percentage, and add the percent symbol. So it's always 2 place values to the right, and in this one, we get 60%. Anytime you have a number in front of the decimal, like this one, you're still moving it 2 places to the right. So this third one is 175%, and the last one, 0.05, we move it 2 places to the right, and that is 5%. Now to convert the percent to a decimal, you do just the opposite. So in this case, we will drop the percent symbol and move the decimal 2 places to the left. So here I have 25%. I'm going to drop the percent symbol. So now I have 25. A decimal is always at the end of a whole number. So when we move it back 2 places, we end up with 0.25. Again, that 0 in front of the decimal is meaningless. However, it is kind of nice to see it there to make sure your reader sees your decimal. When we have 60%, we drop the percent symbol, move it back 2 places, and we can just answer 0.60, but this 0 is unnecessary, so we have 0.6. And the third one, again, it's the same thing. You're moving it back 2 places. So for this one, we have 175%. I'm going to drop the percent symbol and then again move it back 2 places. So I end up with 1.75. In the last one, when we have 5%, drop the percent symbol. When you move it back, you are going to need a placeholder again. So this is going to be equal to 0.05. And in the last one, in this one, you can see how we're going from a fraction into a percentage. So you're going to start with the fraction and then first turn it into the equivalent decimal by dividing. Again, that was 1 divided by 4. And we know from the previous example that we're going to get 0.25. Once you have it as a decimal, then you can move it 2 places to the right and get your equivalent percentage. And you would do the same for the following two. Thank you for watching.